Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in a few minutes. Just want to say welcome, one and all, and just wanted to very quickly make a few very quick announcements before we get started. First of all, if you want to use the chat window, if you do the little chat icon, just to say hi, tell us where you're from, tell us how long you've been using ProFile, maybe let us know if you've used some of the other, or if you've attended some of the other webinars in our ProFile tour this year. We're going to get started in a few minutes, and so just settle in. We're just going to wait a little bit. Just got to share my screen and make sure my windows are all ready to go. So give us a couple more minutes, we'll get started. And yeah, I'm already seeing comments coming in through the chat panel, so that's great. And yeah, so give us a couple of minutes and we will get started. Okay, give me a second here, just make sure I could share my screen and we will get started. Make sure I've got two monitors and I've already in the past shared the wrong monitor. So let's make sure we share the right one. I think this is the one. So let's see. Yeah, you should see a PowerPoint presentation. It's a bit early in this slide, so let me go back to the initial slide. And let me just switch over to ProFile before we actually get started, make sure everything's working. So it looks as we're all good to go. I'm going to turn off my video just to save on some bandwidth. So let me just stop that video. You don't need to see me at all. I'm more interested in seeing my screen, I would think. So welcome, one and all. Pleasure to have you here. Wonderful that you took the time to sit in with us on this final English webinar of our ProFile tour that we kicked off back in November. Thank you for being here. Before I introduce myself, I want to make a few very quick announcements. We get asked this quite often, and I keep forgetting to mention it, so I've made some notes. So the first thing is, if you need some CPD credits, you will receive your CPD credits via mail. I think of roughly 10 to 14 days, something like that. Miriam mentioned it and I've already forgotten, but you will get an email with your CPD credits if that's something that you need. Yes, there is a recording for this webinar. You could visit Intuit's YouTube channel. And I'm going to show you a slide a little bit later to talk about videos and all that other stuff that's available on the Intuit YouTube channel. So if you want to refer back to this webinar, you can do that. And the other thing I should point out is the chat window is going to be active for maybe another 5-10 minutes, no more than that. Wonderful to see all your comments. So thank you for taking the time to let us know where you're from, how long you've been using ProFile. We've got people from all over the place. Great to see you all here. And let me just go back to my PowerPoint here. Give me a second. Here we go. So thank you for taking the time. But what's going to happen is at some point the chat feature is going to be disabled. You won't be able to post any comments on the chat panel. If you want to ask questions, please use the Q&A window. So you can use Q&A to post a question. Now that's active. And the reason why chat is going to be disabled is so that the team can upload some links, some important links. Maybe you haven't received the links to the training guide. There's a PDF of a training guide. We've got a homework handbook that you could refer to if you want to just kind of take ProFile for a test drive. There's also a little utility, a file, a .gfi file that I'll talk about a little bit later that you can use to do. We have a homework assignment as we do every one of our webinars. So if you want to try that out, you can download that utility, that .gfi file. And then later on, once we're well into the webinar, I think chat will then be enabled again, if I understood correctly. So please, the important thing is use Q&A to post any questions regarding ProFile, regarding this webinar. Chat is essentially that, just to chat back and forth amongst the attendees and ourselves, but that will be disabled in next couple of minutes, I would think, so that we can post those links I was telling you about. Okay, I think that's it for the public service announcements. Let me quickly introduce myself. Not sure if you've been at any of our previous webinars. If you haven't, again, pleasure that you took the time, and pleased that you took the time to sit in with us. And I'm always thrilled to be on these webinars. I love doing these webinars. I love talking about ProFile. I love talking about technology. So my name is Michael Delaro. Had my own CPA practice for, I keep forgetting, 20-25 years easily, and got rid of it. I sold it a few years ago, and I just wanted to focus on what I truly love doing, and that's doing what we're doing right now, working on training materials, talking about technology, hosting webinars. That's always been my passion. And so there you go. I'm thrilled to be here. And I need to point out that I am not alone in putting this together. I'm not alone in delivering this webinar. We've got some wonderful people who are here more or less in the background. I would like to take a couple of minutes and introduce each and every one of them. First of all, Miriam Kusa is here. Miriam is the lady who she put the thing together. She's the one who made this happen and started at the very beginning, making sure that we had all the resources in place, all the materials, the scheduling, and the invitations, and everything else. So thank you, Miriam, once again, for all of your efforts in just making sure that this ran really smoothly. And hopefully, this being our last one, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it will run smoothly as well, being the last one. And we also have some ProFile care people who are with us today, who have been with us in all the other webinars as well. So we've got Julie Lachance, who's here. Julie is with ProFile. She's part of the care team. She knows ProFile way better than I do. And Julie is here to answer your questions via the Q&A icon. Duncan Robinson is also here, as he's been throughout our webinars as well. Duncan, again, these are the experts, okay? So Duncan and Julie know the product way better than I do. So if you've got any questions, feel free to use that Q&A panel to ask away. Duncan has been known to open up his microphone on occasion during our webinars. It's always a pleasure to get his experience, his voice of reason, voice of experience that he'll come through with a few little tidbits, a few little suggestions, or sometimes, gently correct me if I said something that wasn't 100% accurate. And so always a pleasure, Duncan, to have you with us. And yeah, look forward to your comments as well. I'm not sure if Mario's with us today. Mario sometimes gets called away on something else, but he might make an appearance. Mario Blaise also with the care team.
Yes,
And
I am here.
Hey, great, wonderful. Thank you for joining us, Mario. There you go. So we've got 3 key members of ProFile Care with us today. And their experience far exceeds my own, and their knowledge as well. And last but not least, we have Patrick Biggs, who's with us. He's kind of like the guru in the background, pulling all the levers and pushing the buttons and making sure Zoom runs properly. So thank you again, Patrick, for being here today. And so as you can see, there's a whole team of people that are putting this together. And always a pleasure to work with this wonderful gang, and kind of sorry that this is our last one for this year, at least on the English side. Okay, let's move on. Let me just move the slide forward. Who is this training session for? Well, as you can see on the screen, we kind of combine T2 webinar for all levels of experience. Our T1, if you've been in our T1 webinars, you'll note that we have a T1 for new users. We have a T1 for experienced users. So we kind of split up the webinar on the T1 side. On the T2 side, we're only doing the one webinar. So we're going to hopefully encompass something that, or a few things that are of interest to everyone here, whether you're a brand new user or an experienced user. And just scrolling through the chat window, I saw such a range of experience. People have been using ProFile. I think I saw somebody say they've been using it since 1995. That's a long time. It's got to be something right if you've been sticking around for since 95. And I'm the same. I'm a ProFile user for over 20 years, and I'm not going anywhere. Love using ProFile, and so yeah, we've got all users, as I say, all kinds of experienced users, brand new users, and very experienced users. So that's who the session is for. Anybody who wants to learn T2 right from the very basics. We're going to start at the very beginning. So those of you with a lot of experience, please sit tight, please be patient as we go over some stuff that you probably know. But we're hopefully going to show you a few little tips and tricks, a little bit of more advanced type of stuff that you can take away and just incorporate into your practice. So some of the topics we'll cover today. We're going to start, as I said, at the very beginning. We're going to talk about just a few key settings, a few things that, especially for the newer users, they may not know about. So we'll talk about some settings. We're going to go over some just very basic T2 functionality. Okay, so just how do you prepare a T2 in ProFile? And so we're going to start again at the very beginning and show you how to work with ProFile on a T2 return. We're going to talk about what's new, and we're going to also take maybe 5-10 minutes and talk about ProTax. I don't know if anyone has experience with ProTax, if you've seen it or not, but nonetheless, we'll show you a few. We're not going to go into the product itself. We're just going to show you some screenshots, and we'll describe what ProTax is all about and what's interesting about ProFile, the midway point of our webinar. And we're going to talk about some advanced functionality, as we said already, and then we're going to wrap things up. The last half hour of our webinar is devoted to letting you try ProFile. We're going to let you try that .gfi file, how to import those Giphy all those Giphy accounts into the Schedule 100 and Schedule 125. So we'll show you how easy it is to import those values rather than having to type them all into ProFile, which is I've never really liked doing. It's such a massive, it just takes so long. So we'll show you a shortcut there, and you can try it yourself. And of course, at the very end, within that last half hour, I will open up the Q&A window. I don't see it now, it's closed, so I can just focus on the presentation. And in that last half hour, I will open it up and we'll kind of have a bit of a discussion, if you will. I'll read some of the questions, especially the ones that are pertinent to the wider audience. And then we'll answer some questions, and that'll be it. We'll wrap it up. I'm in Ottawa, so we're in the Eastern time zone, so it's almost 10 to 1 here. We're going to wrap it up at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, and so we've got roughly 2 hours and 40 minutes or so to go before we wrap things up. And of course, we will take a 15-minute break as well. All right, so there you go. That's kind of how our day or our afternoon or morning, depending on where you are, is going to unfold. We do this every time, and we have to point it out. We're here for software training. We're here to show you how to use ProFile. We are definitely not here to tell you how to work on a T2 return. We're not here to offer any kind of tax advice. Certainly unable to answer any questions that go, I have a client and they've got this situation and I'm not sure how to proceed. I'm terribly sorry. We just cannot answer those kinds of questions. This is not the forum for that. As I say in every webinar, and as I've always told my clients, tax is opinion. And you ask 5 or 10 tax practitioners a tax question, you may likely get 5 or 10 different answers, usually starting with, it depends, right? How many times have you used that answer when a client asks you a question? That was my stock reply, it depends. Sometimes it just bought us some time to think about, I mean, I'm not really sure about this, but we just throw out the it depends line and then go from there. So that let's face it, that's what tax is about. Tax is about experience, it's about opinion. A lot of people think it's black and white. It's yes or no, on or off. No, it's not. There's a lot of nuance there, a lot of gray in between that black and white, and that's why we're going to show you ProFile in a T2 environment, of course. But nonetheless, we're not here to talk about what you should do when you're working with a client preparing a T2 return. We often get asked, or I know that I often get asked, there's a lot of other, let's face it, there's a lot of other products out there. There's a lot of other solutions. So why ProFile? As I indicated at the very beginning, I've been a ProFile user for 20 years or so. Why am I still using ProFile? Remember Steve Jobs? Remember his pat line? It works. There you go. It works. And it's reliable. And it does what I want it to do. It gives me everything that I need. And what I really like about it, because when I started using ProFile, I was sharing office space with another accountant back then. And we were being supported, or we were using another product. They disappeared out of the Canadian marketplace, and all of a sudden we're left, empty-handed. We're like, what are we going to do? They're gone. They're not giving us any more updates. And so we switched to ProFile. And right away, the difference was amazing because, the other product we were using, every tax module, every tax year was a different product. You had to click on a different icon to launch whatever, the 1999 T2. And then if you had to do a 98 or whatever year, that was a different software application on your computer. It was very clunky, but we never thought anything of it. We thought that's how software works for tax. And then we saw ProFile, and everything is in that one window, right? We'll show you that a little later for those of you that are new to ProFile. you could toggle from a T1 to a T2 from whatever tax year you want to use, all in the same place. So you don't have to be an IT guru to manage all of these different versions. It's all one version, one interface. And as I say, it just works. And the other thing I really need to point out, because I've experienced this, and I've said it before in other webinars, but I think it's worth repeating. You're being supported when you're using ProFile by a company, by a supplier, if you will, that's got deep resources. It's been around a long time. It's going to be here in the long term. I had the experience twice of working with software in my practice that disappeared. One was accounting software and one was tax software. So I had a whole bunch of clients using accounting software that they decided to leave the Canadian marketplace as well. And that is not a pleasant feeling. And then we experienced it again with our tax software. You want to be able to use someone that's going to be reliable. We don't, I never really thought that was of any importance prior to that feeling of emptiness when your vendor disappears. You never really think about these things, but it could happen. And you want to be sure that you're working with a partner who's going to be supporting you in the long term. So that's my take on it. And for me, that is something that's very important. And of course, there are other reasons for using ProFile. There's an extensive auditor that we'll show you a little bit later, over $2,800 tell them an accountant, right? Every number is a dollar. 2,800 diagnostic checks, comprehensive help. We're going to show you some of your help options a little bit later. You can personalize it. There's various ways in which you can personalize ProFile. I'll show you a few little suggestions on how to personalize ProFile. More and more, we're seeing online tools, including backup to the cloud. So if you want to, I know you've got your files saved on your computer, that's how ProFile works. You save files on your computer, and maybe you've got, hopefully you've got a backup routine where you're backing your files up somewhere else. But included in ProFile is a service called Backup to the Cloud, and you can, in addition to however else you're saving your files and backing up your files, you can also back those files up to ProFile's computers, and this way, if anything goes south, you could always retrieve your files that way. So that's just an example of some of the online tools that are available via ProFile. And of course, especially with T2s, it works with QuickBooks, and that's what we're going to show you in our homework assignment: how you can export data that's Schedule 100, Schedule 125 from QuickBooks and bring it right into ProFile. You don't have to type anything in, and we're going to show you that a little bit later as well. A few key features. Yes, of course, you could carry forward your 2021 files to 2022, 1999 to 2020. You can carry forward from the previous year. You could also carry forward from competing software. So if you've got a copy of a T2 return made or prepared in another competing tax application, you can still carry forward that file into ProFile. Of course, it is multi-year and multi-province. And so, yes, sometimes it happens, right? Somebody comes along and they haven't filed a return for 2-3 years, and you've got to do 3 tax years all at the same time. So you could easily, start with the oldest one, work on that, carry it forward, work on that, carry it forward, work on that. So you can work in multi-year and multi-province, of course, as well. If those of you who have clients in more than one province, yes, ProFile will obviously accommodate that, including Quebec. So I'm in Ottawa, and a lot of Ottawa practitioners are going to have Quebec clients, because it's depending on where in Ottawa you are, it's a 5-minute drive across a bridge, and you're in Quebec. And so oftentimes a lot of Ottawa practitioners will work on tax returns in Ontario and Quebec. And in this day of cloud solutions, we're seeing more and more practitioners have clients right across the country or even across the world, maybe. And that's not uncommon either. So yeah, we're really just, the world is shrinking as each day goes by. And so multi-year, multi-province, Giphy import, we already talked about. We'll show you that a little bit later. We're also going to show you some screenshots of T2 auto fill my return. I don't know if anyone has ever used T2 auto fill my return. Wonderful feature where you can compare what you've got for that client in terms of all kinds of data, including the address, including some carry forwards like non-capital losses, and so on and so forth. So you could compare what you've got in your profile file versus what CRA has for that client. So we're going to show you that. Online backup we talked about. And again, we've also talked about how it is proven, it is reliable, and we know we can count on it. What about help? We all need help, of course. We all need to get a question answered, especially when it's the thick of things. We've got a whole pile of returns we're working on, and something's not quite working the way we thought it was going to work. And what do you do when you need that assistance? Well, there's all kinds of resources available to you. But what you see on the screen, I'm just going to turn on my laser pointer here. So what you see on the screen is the in-product help. So all you have to do is press F1 or go up to the help menu and ask for profile help, and you will get this window, and you can therefore get all kinds of help right from inside profile. You can even go to the search tab over here and type in a search term and get an answer that way. There's also, as I say, all kinds of resources. There's a 200-page user guide that you could download from Profile's website. Okay, so there's a 200-page PDF document that you could download. If you want to actually talk to someone, you have two options. You can call using telephone support. You could also enable a live chat session. I'm going to go into Profile in a minute just to show you where you find all this stuff. And yeah, so there is a live chat option where you can, as you're working in Profile, launch a little chat window and just chat with someone as you're working in Profile. In product help we've talked about, and of course all kinds of online resources. Of course, don't forget there is the website, the Profile website, and we're going to show you slides in a second of these two features. There's the online community that you could access, so you could essentially network with your peers, with people who are also tax practitioners all across the country, and you could ask questions in that community. You get to answer questions in that community. There's some people in the community who are really active, answering all kinds of questions, and you could tap into all of that, and we'll show you in a second what that looks like. And of course, we have webinars such as we're doing today, but there's all kinds of videos that you could access, videos that help you learn Profile, that introduce some new features, some advanced features, and we're going to show you as well how you get access those videos in our next slide. So here's the tax community, the online community that you could access. You can get to it. Again, I'll show you in Profile how you can get to it. You could also just go to Profile's website, and you could click the links that is for help or resources or something like that, and you can get to the community that way. And as I said, you can ask all kinds of questions. You could refer to some Profile help articles, all kinds of resources available from that website. And same thing, you could from Profile's website or directly from inside Profile, you could click a link, and I'll show it to you in a second. That will launch this window that we're displaying. That is a YouTube channel, essentially, of all the available videos where you could learn some Maybe it'll be some new features. There's all kinds of resources available, videos available on this website where you can, could be anything from very basic stuff like how do I install a profile to really advanced stuff like how do I work with related and associated corporations, and videos that span that range of expertise, if you will, and you could learn how to use ProFile. I always like using the videos because, first of all, you can access them at your own leisure whenever you have time. You could pause them and go and try whatever it is you're learning, and you could try it, and then you could go back and refer to the video. Maybe it's not working exactly the way you thought it should. You could rewind the video, look at it again. So it's a great way to learn. It's always been my favorite resource. And so let's go over to ProFile and show you where all this stuff is. So of course, go to the help menu. Seems to be the logical place. And there's the profile in product help. There's the user guide, a link to the user guide we were talking about. Okay. And then it looks like we've kind of run out. That's what it looks like. There's some support here, and you can, if you're having some serious trouble, you can contact tech support, the care people, and they can actually launch an application that gives them access to your profile, and they can then analyze and scope out what the problem is. And then if we scroll down, it looks like we have no more help resources. We've got a whole bunch of menus about licenses. There is a feedback window that you could launch if you have a suggestion, a comment to make. You want to send it back to the ProFile team. You could do that by clicking send feedback. Now, there are other resources. You just have to go to a different menu. So for example, notice there is a training menu here. And so you can access some tutorials depending on what it is you want to learn. Or maybe you have a new staff member that you've hired and they're pretty good with tax, but they've never used ProFile before. So here's some tutorials that they could walk through step by step, guided tutorial that will show them how to work with various modules. And other training options is what you could click on to go and view those videos we were talking about, the community and other online resources. And then if you go to the online menu, you could also get some information here as well. If you go to update information, you could go and find out what's new with ProFile. So there was an update, I think it was just last week, maybe even last Wednesday. There was the latest version updated to 2.5, and we'll show you how to check for your version in a minute. But you could go and see what's new in that version, what's fixed, are there any known issues, okay? So all kinds of resources, as we said. We just have to go further away from the help menu. We've got to go over to the online menu and the training menu, okay? All right, let's go back to our presentation, and let's just take a few minutes, just a couple of minutes to talk about a few new things. First of all, as we mentioned, the latest version, the newest or the most current version, if you prefer, is 2022.2.5. There was an update just last week. And you know how you can tell if you're on the latest version? This is me being a little bit of a nerd. But let me open up a T2 here. Give me a second. Let me do something else here. Let me just go file, reopen, because then I'll see my latest version here, my latest file that I was working on. So there you go. I'll click that. And you know how you could tell you're on the latest version? Let me just get this thing launched. My computer seems to want to take a break. Notice the tab colors. See that? This is new. They were gray before. I really like this. Again, this is me being a bit of a nerd, but I think this is great because first of all, the contrast between all available tabs and the tab you're on is more pronounced. The tabs themselves are easier to see, and I don't think I'm wrong And I don't think these tab colors were there prior to the latest update. So if you're seeing these tab colors, odds are you're on the 2.5 version. And how can you tell for sure? Go to the help menu and go down to about, and you will see what profile version you're on. By the way, if some of my windows and icons look a little bit kind of oversized, I did. A lot of people are commenting in our webinars that screens sometimes are a bit too small. So I tried to boost as best as I can some of the windows, so hopefully make it easier for you to read. Okay, so there you go. You can see right there, 2022.2.5. And how can you check for updates? What you can do is go back to the online menu, and it says right here, check for updates, okay? And it'll only take a minute or so. ProFile is going to launch a browser or at least go online and go and check with, I guess, on the Intuit, on the ProFile servers, look and see if there's anything new. And if so, it'll alert you to say, hey, yeah, there's a new version. Do you want to download it? So that's how you could check. And a really good idea, by the way, is rather than you going and checking all the time, is there an update available? You can ask for automatic update notification. Okay, it's an update notification. It's not an automatic update that is going to, in the background, update profile. What it's going to do is, if you enable this feature, you're telling ProFile, please go and check if there's an update. And if there is, just open up a window to tell me that there is. I still have to update it manually myself, which is what you want, because the last thing you want is you're working in the tax return and all of a sudden ProFile shuts everything down and says, oh, wait a minute, well, there's an update. I'm not happy when Windows does that to me. and so this way you can schedule the update, but at least you've got the alert, you've got the notification that there is an update and you should be updating soon. Okay, so there you go. You'll find it under Options, Environment, System tab. Let me show it to you. So go up to the Options menu. We're going to go to the Options menu a whole pile of times today because there's all kinds of functionality that we'll find there. So if you go to Options, Environment, and as we said, go to the System menu, and then you'll see Enable Automatic Check for Updates. And it is a check for updates. It's going to notify you that there's an update. It's not going to actually update ProFile for you. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our presentation. What else is new? Well, you've probably noticed the other feature that is very visible because it's right in our face, the new look icons. So the icon bars have been redesigned, as you could see on the screen. So many of us were kind of used to the old-fashioned icons that we've been using for years and years. So they were updated, I don't know, a few months ago, 6 months ago, I can't remember when it's been, but it's been a while ago. And so, yeah, there's a new look icon, they work the same way. I mean, you've got your review marks over here, you've got your Zoom, you've got your auditor, all of the icons are there, new file, carry forward, open file, save file, and so on and so forth are all there. They just look different, okay? I kind of like the more modern look. I know that based on some of the comments that I've looked at in prior webinars, some people are saying, I like the old icons better. I prefer the old icons. And if you want to log your request for change, remember you can go to help and you can go to send feedback. And you could make your comments that way, okay? I know that sometimes we're tempted to put it in the Q&A window and say, I want the old icons back. Unfortunately, it's better if you actually log it through the feedback window. That way it goes straight to the team that's in charge of this, and your comment will be maybe better heard that way, okay? All right, let's go back to our presentation. E-signatures is also something not relatively brand new. It's maybe a year or so old. CRA finally agreed to accept electronic signatures. Yay for us, right? Because one thing I couldn't stand, I shouldn't say I couldn't stand, one thing that sometimes could be a little bit troublesome is when clients would come into the office and they were there to sign their authorization forms, whatever it was they needed to sign. And invariably they would say, hey, is Mike here? Can I talk to him for 5 minutes? In the middle of April, last thing you want is clients popping in wanting to have a chat with you. No time for that. And so e-signatures kind of helps us get rid of that traffic and we turn it into virtual traffic, easier to manage, easier to control, and easier to monitor. As you could see, you could have online status of those documents. So why am I putting this in the what's new section? Given that it's not really new, this was there last year. What is new is we now have, in addition to DocuSign, we also have integration in ProFile with Adobe Sign. So some people prefer using Adobe Sign. Some people maybe prefer using DocuSign. The key is that both are available, both can be integrated with ProFile, okay? And I just wanted to point out as well, if you are a QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor, so if you've got clients that are using QuickBooks Online and you're supporting them, and maybe even if you're just, all you're doing is their tax return at the end of the year, and they're on ProFile, I'm sorry, not on ProFile, on QuickBooks, you can go to your copy of QuickBooks Online Accountant, click on the Pro Advisor menu, make sure you're on the Benefits tab, and scroll down that window. You'd see all the benefits that accrue to you by virtue of being a pro advisor. And you will see down at the bottom or near the bottom of this window that there is a discount available to you as a pro advisor, a discount on DocuSign, okay? Depending on what tier you're at in your pro advisor membership, your discount could be anywhere from 20 to 40%. There are terms and conditions that apply, so have a look at that, and you can get more information just by visiting DocuSign's website, I would think. But there you go. I just wanted to point that out. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk about some key T2 settings. So especially for the new users, there's a couple of things you'll want to look at and make sure that you've determined and you've established in ProFile. The first one being the forms you want to give your clients. Now, again, remember we talked about tax being opinion, about everybody having a different answer to a question. So if I were to say, what do you give to your client as part of their T2 package? I'm sure the answers would be extremely varied. Some people maybe print the whole T2 package, including the T2 jacket, all the schedules, and everything that ProFile prints out. And some people actually do print hard copies of all this. Others might say, well, I print just a summary. I give them a summary, maybe with a few schedules like the 100 and 125. Others might say, I just give them PDF. I give them the whole thing, but in a PDF. And so it's all over the map, right? And whatever you do in your office, whatever you've decided to give to your client, when you're done the tax return, you want to give them their copy, you could tell ProFile what you've decided to give them. And so whether you give them just a schedule or you give them the whole jacket and all of the schedules, all of the forms, this is where you do it. This is where you tell ProFile, here's what they get. Okay. Now, I should point out, Duncan raised this in, I think, our last webinar, and it's a very important point to note. If you check on all these things, okay, so notice how everything's checked, right? The dark squares mean, yeah, we're going to give the clients all this. ProFile will only select them if they're used in that tax return. ProFile is not going to print out a whole pile of empty forms. So essentially what we're saying is, if this form was used, give it to the client. So if we use the S7, then yeah, select it for printing. If there was no S7, ProFile won't print it. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to point out. The other thing I wanted to point out is, notice there are 3 different columns up here. There's the file copy, meaning the office copy. Do you actually want to prepare a copy of the package for your own office? I never did. I had it in ProFile. There's no need for me to have a hard copy, especially, or even a PDF of the tax return sitting in a computer folder somewhere. I don't need that. So I would uncheck that first column up here and say, I don't need that. So uncheck it. The second column, the client column, this is where you tell ProFile what you give to the client. Okay. And notice we have the lines here: print these sets, archive these sets, email these sets. So what do you want to do? What I was doing is I would uncheck print these sets. I didn't want to print a hard copy of anything, and I would select archive these sets. In other words, create a PDF of the package. All right. And then I'd go down here and select whatever it is I want to give them. And notice, if you did this last year, you could carry forward last year's settings to this year. Now, the other thing I should point out is, be aware of the tabs at the top of that screen, because this is module and year specific. So what we're doing right now is we're telling ProFile for 2022 T1s, that's the window we're in. Okay, we're setting the forms for 2022 T1 returns. Now for T2, I would have to go to this tab and select the forms for 2020 to 2022 T2 returns. Also pay attention to the print job. Do you want to select a print job for T1 paper? Probably not. You want it to say e-file, whether it's T1 or T2. You're not paper filing, you're e-filing. So make sure that print job is set to e-file. Okay. And then there's some other things you could do here as well. You could change the status. What do I mean by the status? If we go to a tax return and see this icon right over here, the eye in a circle, if I click in there, I see a whole bunch of information, including the client status. So it says carried forward. Now I could change that status. I could click the drop down and say, okay, it's completed. Once I finished it, printed it up, and given it to the client and e-filed it, I want to set the status to completed. So what you could do is, instead of you going in there and doing it, you could go into the form selection window and say, after I print the return, because printing the return might be the exact last thing you do, change the status to completed, or at least change the status to printed. All right, so you don't have to go in and manually change the status. There's other things you could do from here. You could take a snapshot of the return. We talked about snapshots last week if you were in our T1 webinar for experienced users. And of course, you could add additional columns. So if you want to have, maybe you have a head office or something, and you want to have a copy, a PDF for head office or for the manager or whatever it is, you could add 2 extra sets. All right. And the last thing I'll point out is, see right over here where it says language. I don't know if this happens to you. It happened to us. We have some clients on T1 mostly who would say one partner wants their tax return in French, printed in French. The other one wants it printed in English. And I would try to remember what language to print the tax return. And I would usually forget or make a mess of it. You could actually go and set the language and say, print the tax return in the language of correspondence. And so if we indicated on the information page, right? So we've got the info page here. So if we indicated the language, then the ProFile would go and print in that language. So here you notice it says English, and therefore when we go print the return, it would print in English or PDF in English. Okay. So it's amazing all of the settings you've got from that options form selection window. There's all kinds of stuff you could do here. Okay. All right. The other thing I wanted to point out is there's a print menu that's been changed. The screenshot says new T2 print menu. It's not really that new. It's been around for a few years, so can't remember how many. So there's a new, more kind of modern print interface that you could use. But what you have to do is you have to go into the print setup menu and enable the new T2 print menu. All right. So once again, when you're in ProFile, what you have to do is go to File, go and select Print Setup, and then enable the new T2 print menu. And so now, if I click on File Print, I'm going to get an error message because this is nowhere near complete. So I'll just click OK anyway, and I'm going to get the new T2 print interface. Okay, I kind of like the look of it. Depends if you like it or not, but nonetheless, the choice is yours. You can enable the new print menu or stick with the one that you're maybe comfortable with. Choice is yours. Okay, let's go back and look at a few other things. Okay, so for those of you that are PDF fans, no hard copy. We're not going to print anything. We're going to give our clients PDFs. So again, what we want to do is under form selection. So if I go to my options, form selection, and then what we do is, oops, hold on. I think I clicked on something else. I'm realizing, yeah, I figured I clicked on something else. Let's try that again. Options, form selection. And now what we could do is we could tell ProFile, see over here where it says print these sets, uncheck print these sets, uncheck it for file too, because we're not gonna print anything for the filing copy. And then we go to archive and click that for the client. Okay, so click the second line that says archive under the client column. I'm telling ProFile that I now do not want to print any hard copies for the client. It's all going to be PDF. Okay, that's what I've done with this. And by the way, remember, you want to be on T2. All right, and so notice I wasn't on T2, so now I got to do it again. Uncheck print, check archive, uncheck anything else. Go and select what you want to give the clients, and make sure you are on e-file. Okay, so T2 e-file is where you want to be. All right, but make sure that second line is selected that says you want to PDF these packages, nothing hard copied. Okay, so make all those changes. And then what happens is when you go and click File, Print, nothing is going to print because you unchecked the print. You checked archive. And so even though you click File, Print, ProFile is going to create a PDF of the client's copy of the tax package. Now, ask yourself two things. First thing, where is ProFile going to put that PDF? And the second thing, how is ProFile going to name that PDF? All right. Well, you can go and tell ProFile how to deal with both of those things. Okay, so let's go back to our presentation here. So there are PDF options. All right, so if you go to Options Environment and scroll over to the PDF tab, you could tell ProFile, again, module by module. So for T2s, you could say, here's how I want you to name the return. Let's actually do it in ProFile. So let's go to Options Environment and then go over. And if you don't see the PDF tab, see these little arrows at the far right? Click those arrows and there's PDF. All right. So now I could tell ProFile, I've already done this, as you can see. For T2, I want it to be named the name of the client, the return type, and the year end. So ABC Inc. T2 2021. All right, that's how I want ProFile to name that PDF. Going to be a lot easier for me to find it. The other things I could do is I could notice it again, it's module by module. So I would go down here and I would tell ProFile for my modules where I want ProFile to save those PDFs, not the tax files, the PDF. So by default, ProFile will save it with the tax file, or you can go down and for each of your modules, so here's my T2, and I'm saying I want it in a separate folder under my profile data called archives. I don't want to mix my PDFs with my tax files. I never liked doing that personally. I wanted my PDFs in a separate location. Okay, so you could enable all that. You could decide all that. And last but not least, you could even tell a profile that you want to password protect these PDFs, and you could establish the password conventions. So do you want it to be, for example, the client name with the business number or something like that? That would be the password. Okay. So again, you could personalize profile in any way you choose when it comes to what you're disseminating to your client. Okay. All right, let's go back and move on. The other thing I want to point out is remember that profile does create a letter, does prepare a letter when you give the client their package, they will get a letter. So you can preview that letter and you could change that letter. So let me show you how to do that. So if we go back to the options menu and go to your templates, okay? Now, again, make sure you're on the right tab. Notice there's a T1 tab, T2 tab. So make sure you're on the right tab. So I clicked on T2. Here's all my letters that exist, all right? Or all my templates, if you prefer. Notice we have English and we have French. Okay, so again, if you have clients that are both English and French, you can personalize both versions of the letter, an English version and a French version. And so if you want to make any changes or you want to view what the letter looks like, you can just double click it from here. So here's the client letter. So I'll click on the client letter and there's the client letter, okay? And notice it starts by saying, we enclose your copy of the tax return. You can make changes to this. All of the black font is just text. So notice I've already started in a prior webinar. You could just start typing whatever you want, okay? That's just font. That's the font. That's just text. The black font is text. So you could make changes, okay? You could personalize this letter. And then maybe you want to add a value from the tax return. So all you have to do is go and find that value. So we'll go back to the T2 return. Maybe it's something off of the T2 itself, okay? Maybe it's something off one of the schedules. Whatever it is, all you do is you right-click on a field, okay? So right-click on any field and go and find the field code. So see here it says copy field code. So I click on that, then I go back to the window menu, go back to my template, and now I could go to where I added that extra font right over here, or that extra text, and then just do a paste, and there's that value. Notice how that's in blue font. You can also do it a different way. Let me see if I can show you. It's a bit trickier on a single monitor. This is great if you're using two monitors. So what you could do is you could actually grab a value. So grab a field, click and hold, and then drag it over. Notice how that there's a little icon there that's dragging along, and I'm going to drag it onto the page. Okay, so copy paste or drag and drop, whatever you choose. You can use either or. And now I'm personalizing this letter. Okay. All right, let's close this down, and then it's going to ask me if I want to save the changes. In my case, I'm going to say no, and that's how you could personalize that client letter that you want profile to include with that T2 package that you give to your client. All right, let's go back and move on. So let's talk about how to become more efficient. How can we save time? What can we use? What tricks are there? What tips are there available that would help me? Even if I save 30 seconds a minute per tax return, if however many tax returns you're doing, even if you're doing 50 returns, 100 returns, if you can save 1 minute per return, that's still significant. So a couple of things I wanted to point out. So there is this window called the quick start window that you can enable and have ProFile launch as soon as you start up ProFile. Why would you want to use this window? Well, notice what I did when I wanted to open up a return, that an existing return. I first went to File, Open, and then I went, oh, wait a minute, no, that's not what I want. Because notice then I have to click on the, now it goes to T2, but maybe I want to go to a T1, so then I have to click on, I want to click on the other tab and then go and find. So, that could take 3-4 mouse clicks. It could take 30 seconds a minute. Doesn't sound like much, but again, multiply that by however many returns you work on in your office. So instead of you doing it that way, what we could do is we could go on to the help menu, select Quick Start, and open up this window. So what's the advantage here? Well, the advantage here, look at all the recent files that get displayed, okay? And depending on how many files you worked on, you will even see a scroll bar here that says show me more. Because odds are when you're working on a tax return and then you quit at the end of the day and you come back tomorrow, odds are you're going to be reopening a tax file. You're not finished working on tax files. And so you want to open up that tax file that you were working on yesterday morning, not the very last tax file you worked on, maybe a file, 6 files ago. And you'll find them all right over here. That's the main reason, I have to be honest with you, the main reason I like using this quick start window is I could quickly find a file I was working on. The other thing I could do here is I could quickly carry forward a tax return, quickly create a new tax return, or maybe open another existing one that I haven't worked on in a while. So I won't see it in the recent file list, but I could still go and tell ProFile to open it. And notice there's other stuff here. I've got the tabs, so I could go to different tabs. I could also go to the resource corner, and we talked about ways in which you can get help. There's the forum, there's tutorials, all the stuff we were talking about. I have quick links to all of those resources from here, and also other links to product information, how to become a pro advisor under the QuickBooks Online Accountant banner, and so all kinds of stuff. So if you like this window, and I like this window, I wanted to see this every time I launch ProFile, just check the box in the bottom left-hand corner that says show quick start. Okay, you're good to go. All right, let's close that down. Let's go over to our presentation and let's talk about Form Explorer. Now, I know that the experienced users, you know all about Form Explorer. I don't have to explain Form Explorer to you. However, for the new users, let me just very quickly point out, when you're working in ProFile and you want to go and find something, you want to go and put some information about, fill out a form, whatever it is, you've got to go and find that form. Now, how do you find that form? You could use the hotkey F4, press the F4 key, that launches Form Explorer. Okay, so from this window, let me just widen some of these columns. So from this window, I could now go and find whatever it is I'm looking for. Okay, I want to put some information in on the S100 or something. Whatever it is I'm looking for, I could just type it in and go and find it. Okay, and ProFile will jump to it. Okay, now, if you don't know the name of the form you're trying to find, it's going to be a little bit difficult to use Form Explorer in this way. You don't know the name of the form. So little trick for you. You've got these icons on the right-hand side of the window. And by default, profile will be on the detail icon. Detail icon, notice what it gives us. It gives us the name of the form, what category it falls under. Is it federal? Is it provincial? Is it information and so on? What's the description of the form? And even, has it been used? Was it used last year? Okay, so you could even see all that kind of information. But now, as I said, if you don't know the name of the form, then you could do a keyword search. Just press on key, so just click on the key icon, and now you've got a search field here that you could type in something like CCA or something, right? And then here's all of the hits that would meet that kind of a search term. Okay? And the other thing you could do, if you've got all your tax lines memorized, well, you could do a line search. So you could search by tax line. I would never be able to work with this. I don't know the tax lines, except for the key one, a few key ones maybe. But nonetheless, if you like working with tax lines, you could do a search by tax line number. Okay, so that's how you would work with the Form Explorer. All right, a couple of other things I wanted to point out is, first of all, memos and tapes. So oftentimes we want to, whether we're working alone, or maybe especially if you're working with a colleague or a team of tax preparers in your office, and maybe sometimes you're reviewing someone else's work, and you want to give them a little memo. You want to include a little memo on something, question you have, or a reminder, whatever it is, okay? And so you could add a memo to any tax line in ProFile. And so let's show you how that works. So I could be anywhere. So I'm going to go to the T2, and here I am at the T2 jacket, okay? And let's pretend I'm reviewing someone's work, and I just want to make a comment about something. So I could right-click on any line, okay? And then I could go down to memo right over here. Notice there's a hotkey for that as well. Press the F8 key, and that's going to launch the memo. So I'm going to click on attach memo. There's my memo. I could type in something, whatever it is, okay? And again, the reason these fonts look a little bit distorted is I tried to boost them just for purpose of the webinar. Notice I could also include a date or insert a date stamp. I could carry forward the memo to next year and then click OK. Two things will happen. Both of them are kind of cool. So I'm going to click OK. First of all, notice how the field now has green shading. And if I hover my mouse pointer, I will see that the little window opens up that shows me, very fine print, mind you, but still, it shows me the details of that memo. The other thing I could do is I could launch the auditor. Okay, we're going to click on F9 or press on F9 key, and whoops, but here there. Let me go back and try that again. Go back to the T2. That was weird. Yeah, okay, that's not working. I don't know why that's not working. Let me do it the old-fashioned way. Let's go back to the T2, and then all I could do is I can go and click on the icon for the memo, which it used to be there. Where'd it go? It's there somewhere. There you go. Oh, no, what's going on? My mistake. Let me see here. I'm making a mess of this. Oh, wow. Hang on a second. Apologies. For some reason, I think my function keys got all messed up. So, oh, here it is right here. So I did launch it somehow, but in a roundabout way. Generally, F9 will open up this auditor. Not sure why it went to another form first, but there it is. There's my auditor. Apologies for that. It took me a while to get there. The important thing I wanted to point out was, remember, I included a memo up here, okay? Now, let's pretend I'm working with my colleague, and I want my colleague to view all the memos. Now, you're probably thinking, well, how are they going to know where the memos are? They're going to scroll through the whole return and look for the green fields? That's not efficient. They don't have to. All they have to do is launch the auditor and notice there's a memo tab down here, okay? And they click on memos and all of the memos will show up at the bottom of the window, okay? And you could do the same or similar thing with, for example, values that you want to add up. So let's pretend you're working with the S125 and you need to add up some numbers. You're putting in telephone expense. So let's put the GIFT code in for telephone expense. And now, for some reason, don't know why, I just need to add up a bunch of numbers to get at the total. So what I could do again is right click and this time attach a tape, and the little calculator tape comes up, and maybe I could do something like January 122 plus February, whatever the values are, and I can just keep going. March, right? Plus March is going to be 144. And then I want to get the total. To get the total, press the key that has the plus or equal sign on it. Do not press return. Do not press enter. Press the plus or equal key on your keyboard, and you're going to get the total. Okay, and there's the total there. There's the green field again, so it's shaded in green. And notice if I hover over that field, I get the ribbon or I get the tape that shows me that value, that amount where it comes from. Same thing down at the bottom, I could see that there's a tab on my auditor for any tapes that were used. So I could see any calculated amounts, and even better, rather than me go look for them, I could just double click on any notice, any line in the auditor and profile. Notice how it jumps to that field and circles it in red. So it's so easy to find, right? So if we want to find that memo again, I could just go back to the memo tab down here and then double click. There you go. And I jump to the memo field. Okay.
Hi, Michael. It's Duncan here. Can I just,
yes, please do.
Reinforce what you were saying? I don't correct you. I reinforce what you were saying.
I love it. I love it. Go ahead.
Because you're bang on correct with everything you say. But what I'm want to force here to reinforce here is that I didn't use the tape for years because it drove me nuts, and I just want to reinforce what you said about clicking the equal and not return, because every time it wouldn't work properly. So. For people like me that say, okay, give up on this tape, try it out, and don't use return to get to the next fields, because that'll frustrate you. Just to reinforce that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that, Duncan. Yes, I know that I was the same when and I was maybe even worse, Duncan, because sometimes I would forget to press the equal or plus key, and then I would be pressing return and it wouldn't work. And I'd be like, what the heck, what's going on? I was using this just the other day and it was working. Now it's not working. And I would forget that, wait a minute, no, you don't press. And just to reinforce, and let's do a demo one more time. So wherever you are, if you right click and attach a tape, okay? Now remember, you don't have to put a description here if you don't want to. You can just use the values, up to you. But press an amount or enter an amount, put in a value, and then do not press return. Press the key that has a plus sign or the equal sign, and you'll get the total. Okay.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
And don't click return to get to the next field, because that'll.
Oh yes. Yeah. I got you.
So
yeah.
just
okay.
the tape's great. It's really handy. But for years I didn't use it because it frustrated me, and then did something on a adding machine and stapled it into the folder.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it's true. If you stay away from the return key when you're in a tape, because if you hit return, there you go. I just hit return and I got nothing. Notice I get a zero value. So yeah, good point. Stay away from the return key anywhere in the tape. Use the plus and use equals, you're good. And it's a great tool. It's a great tool. It really is. And so just, and by the way, I know I've mentioned this a million times in the other webinars, but my colleague loves the tape, uses the tape exclusively, always uses the tape. And towards the end of our webinar, I'll show you some ways in which we kind of differed in our working style, because that's what this is about. It's what kind of, we all develop our own working style, and we use the tools that make sense for us. And so my colleague Dale would be always using the tape. He loved the tape. And you know, and at the end of the day, this little tab on the auditor is fantastic. It essentially tells us everywhere we use the tape. And remember, like we said, you can double click on one of the audit messages and ProFile is going to jump to that field. And it's great. Okay, so for any audit message, you could double click on it and get to the field. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about working in a T2 return. So again, for new users mostly, we are starting to work with ProFile. We have to enter information. What do we have to open? What forms do we need? And so on and so forth. So let's just very quickly show you a few little, oops, here we go. So first thing, what do we need? Of course, we know we need the corporate information. We need it. Hopefully you've got a checklist, a questionnaire. Hopefully you've got an engagement letter. And I'm going to show you a couple of tips on that. Okay, I'm just going to show you something that may be of interest to even those of you that are more experienced. Obviously, you'll need to get the CRA authorization. And of course, you'll need those financial statements. And we're going to show you a few tips on most of this stuff because we know we're experienced tax practitioners. We know what we need for a T2. What I want to do is show you how you could work on these things in ProFile. Okay, so that's really what I want to kind of reinforce. So the first thing is a checklist and an engagement letter. If you've got an engagement letter, maybe you've got an engagement letter like I had for years and years and years in Microsoft Word. And so I would go and prepare my engagement letter in Word, and then it was, okay, we have to fire off the engagement letter to our client, go to Word, you know, back then print it maybe or email it, whatever, doesn't matter. But the thing is for me, I didn't want to leave, or let me reword it. I wanted to be in the least amount of software programs. I didn't want to have, obviously, you know, we got ProFile open. You probably have the accounting file, whether they're on QuickBooks or something else. So you've got that running. You maybe have Excel running. And I didn't want, you've got email open, you've got, now I need Word open and who knows what else. And so if I could stay in the least number of applications, the happier I was. So I was thrilled when I realized that, hey, wait a minute, I could create my engagement letter in ProFile. I could even create my checklist in ProFile, my questionnaire in ProFile. How do we do that? Well, let's take 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes to show you. So the first thing I want to point out is if you go to options again, go to your templates. Remember, we're working in T2, so make sure you're on the T2 tab. And here's my T2 templates. We already talked about the client letter that you can personalize. Scroll down, notice there is no engagement letter, okay? There's no engagement letter for T2 in ProFile. No default template for engagement letters. We've got these things though called user 1, user 2, okay? And we even have other user letters here. So here's what you could do, all right? First of all, use one of these user templates to create your engagement letter. Now, if we go to the T1 module, so I'm just going to click on the T1 tab up here, and I'm going to go and click on engagement letter. There is an engagement letter for T1s. Let's double click it. And we're going to open up that engagement letter. And here it is. Now, what you could do, remember, this is just like working in a word processor. Now, you could do the same thing. If you've already got an engagement letter in Word, you could just go and highlight the text you want to copy from your existing engagement letter or from the T1 engagement letter. All right. So I'm just going to right click and select copy. And then I'm going to go over to my other engagement letter. Okay. So I didn't have it open. Let's just go back to options, template. Okay. Make sure I go back to the T2 tab. And I'm going to use user 1 as my engagement letter. All right. So I'm going to click that, open that template up. And now I could go and paste the text from the other template or from Word or whatever it is. And there is my engagement letter. Okay. And then I would close this. It's going to ask me if I want to save. Of course, I would say yes at this point, but I'm just going to, well, I'll say yes anyway. So I'll say yes. And I've now saved user 1 as my engagement letter. And then it close this guy. And the other thing I could do is I could go, therefore, and do, again, the options template, and then go and use user 2, open up user 2, and I'm going to make this my checklist. So I could create, again, maybe copy from somewhere else, paste into here, and I now have my questionnaire, my engagement letter. It's all inside a profile. And all I have to do from there is, if I just want to send the engagement letter, again, I just use Form Explorer and I type in user, right? And I could say user 1, user 2, and so on, or client letter or whatever it is. And I could open that up and send it off to my client. Okay. And so again, the idea being efficiency. Let's see if we could stay in the profile ecosystem for as long as we can. All right. And then later, I'm going to show you a way that hopefully we can get rid of Excel. We don't need Excel anymore because I don't know about you, maybe for years and years and years, I used Excel to prepare my my Giphy codes and so many other things. And if we can get rid of Excel too, even better. So hopefully we can show you something a little bit later on. Okay. And then the next thing is we do need to get authorized. We need to get the business consent form signed. And so again, we could do that from inside a profile, but CRA kind of threw a little wrench in the works, right? Recently, in the past, we knew that we could just go and get the client to sign the business consent form. We file it, we can e-file it with ProFile, and we're good. That's it, we're done. And now CRA has made changes to the whole authorization process. They kind of want confirmation from the client. So if you e-file that engagement, not the engagement letter, I'm sorry, the consent form. So let's use Form Explorer to go and get the I keep saying engagement letter, the consent. And by the way, and I know Duncan has pointed out that though you can use the old terminology like RC59, still works, still shows the business consent form. If you want to use the actual name of the form, business consent, well, we'll get you here. But I'm so used to using RC59 and T1013 on the T1 side, but they still work for the Form Explorer. They don't work, as Duncan has pointed out. If you're printing something and you want to add it to your form selection, T1013 or RC59 won't be there. You need the real name, like business consent, for example. But nonetheless, what we do is we enable printing an e-file of the authorization request. We fill this out, make sure the business number is there, make sure the authorization level is there, okay? And we want the client to sign this. And then once it's signed, we could e-file it directly from inside of ProFile. Of course, I just caution you, you probably already know this, but just in case, I do want to caution you that there have been a number of changes that CRA has introduced recently with authorizations. What CRA essentially wants your client to do is open up a My Business account for their, obviously for their T2, and a My account for their T1. Our client's going to actually do that. I don't know. You can tell me better than I can even suggest. It was my experience. It's been my experience that a lot of clients don't want to bother with My account or My Business account. They'd rather not go there. They want you to take care of all that for them. So there's a whole bunch of ways in which you could work around these requirements. And so, good idea would be if you're a little bit unfamiliar, go to CRA's website and have a look at authorize a representative and see how you could kind of incorporate a workflow that works for your office. Of course, we have to complete the info page. And so essentially what we want to do is we want to be on the info tab of the tax return. And we just go through this and we fill out whatever needs to be filled out. Another little tip for you: if you have to put in that code, the industry code, double click. Okay, you're going to open up this window. Okay, so again, just go to this field, double click it, and this window is going to open up. And what I like about this window is there's a keyword search. So I could just type in a keyword like consulting, and then I could just go and pick the code that I need for that particular client. Because the last thing you want to do is be scrolling through this window. So if you could click the drop down, there's a little drop down arrow here. There's no keyword search capability here. So don't want to be scrolling through all of this. All right, so just double click in that field. Okay, and then of course we want to fill out all the other stuff, including is this first year after incorporation, and date of incorporation, and so on and so forth. And of course, also what you want to do, and this is for the new users, remember to go down to the provincial section over here. Okay, depending what province you're in, you may have to fill out some information. So here's the Ontario portion. In Quebec, of course, it's a little bit more complex because there's a separate CO17 tax return that needs to get filed. And so we have to fill out all this stuff. So we do have to indicate some provincial information on the tax return. Okay. Let's go back to our presentation. And then we get to this bit here, the S100 and the S125. So we know that we have to work with those Giphy codes. Now, in ProFile, you'll probably, if you're brand new, maybe you haven't noticed yet, but what happens is I'm on the income statement right now. Notice that except for a few key accounts like revenue, okay, opening inventory, and a few other accounts, everything else is blank, and I have to select the account. All right, so you could work even with either with account description or with a Giphy code. So I could type in a Giphy code. All right, so there's some Giphy codes I know by heart. So if you type in 9225, that's going to be your telephone and telecommunications. And so you can either put in the Giphy code or the description. So I could put in travel, for example. All right, I could type in the word travel, and then ProFile will put in the Giphy code, or I could put in the Giphy code and ProFile will fill in the description. But the key is you have to select those Giphy codes, and then you put the amount in. All right. Now, the thing is that this is time consuming, right? Because to get to these Giphy codes, you obviously start with the trial balance, the chart of accounts, if you prefer. And you might have to group, because in the chart of accounts on the trial balance, you might have multiple telephone accounts, you have multiple whatever, all different types of accounts, and you group them together, right? And so this is where I would use Excel. Some people maybe are using something like Caseware or other solutions similar to that. And if you're doing Excel, it can be time consuming, because what you're doing essentially is you're taking that trial balance, you're putting a Giphy code next to each account, right? Then you're sorting by Giphy code, and then you're subtotaling by Giphy code, and then you come in here and you put in the value, right? And then invariably what happens is you're working along, and then you realize that, oh, you know what, the client calls and says, oh, I forgot, blah, 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 whatever it is, I forgot this, or I forgot that, or and you got to throw a journal entry in and add an expense or defer something, and that messes up your Giphy codes, because now you've grouped everything and totaled everything, but the values have changed, and now you've got to do this all over again. And so the key is, though, yes, you could do it manually, as we're doing, right? And then once you've done the S125, then you got to do the same thing with the S100. Now we go to the S100, and now we're working with the balance sheet. So it depends $1,000 in cash, and then we're going to go to 1060 for accounts receivable, and we got 4,500 in receivables, and then we keep going, right? Then we put in, I don't know, some prepaid expenses, right? And you put in that value. And then you go down to the liability side. And notice how time consuming this could be. I'm keying in the Giphy code, then I'm putting in the value, and so on and so forth, okay? But yes, you can work this way. And I've worked for many years exactly in this way. And then a little bit later, we're going to show you a shortcut, okay? How to make it even better, how to make it faster. But for now, we're just showing you manually, this is how we do it, manual data entry. But we have to complete that S100 and that S125. Then we have to go to the, if there are any capital assets, of course, we have to go to the whole capital asset, capital cost allowance section of the tax return. And so what we could do is, let's go back to our T2, hit F4 to go to your Form Explorer, call up the S8, which is capital cost allowance. And we do not actually enter any data here. We don't put anything in here, but here's what we can do. You want to add an item. You want to add an asset. Here's my asset list. Here's my CCA calculations. I already have one asset, cost 50 asset. All I have to do is click on one of the lines. So I'm going to click on the second line. We want to add some equipment or some furniture or something. So I'm just going to double click. All right. And ProFile jumps to CCA details. And I put in whatever the class is, class 8 asset, let's pretend. All right. And I'm going to put in, I don't know, furniture. All right. So type in a description, and then go down to normal additions or normal additions for accelerated CCA, whatever it is. So I'm going to put $6,000. There you go. Okay. And so once I fill out the CCA details, I could then, there's a slider. See right over, let me zoom in. Just zoom in on here. Here we go. So notice that there's a slider up here, and I could slide back and forth and go to the next class. Maybe I have an other asset I want to add. Maybe I've got a class 10 vehicle or something. Okay. And then I put in, I don't know, a truck, delivery van, whatever it is. Okay. So I put that in. And then again, I put in the value. Let's pretend we paid $19,000 for it. All right. And then if we go back to our S8 over here, notice how those values have been brought over to the S8. So the first one, it was there from last year. How do I know that? Two ways. First of all, it's in the UCC column. So undepreciated capital costs from last year. We know that. We know how CCA and all that works. But notice the font color, compare the font colors, purple, blue. You may not, you say, yeah, okay, so what, who cares? Why are you even mentioning this? Because purple font means it came from some other return. It was carried forward from last year, okay? And blue font means this came from somewhere else in this year's tax return. And notice the little triangle, the little up pointing arrow, I could double click on it and jump back. That's what those font colors indicate, okay? And notice here, font color is black. Well, it means, as we saw that on the templates when we're working on client letters and what have you, black font is text or a numerical value, but it's a number I put in. It's black font. I put that value in. I type it in. Okay, so font colors become important as well. Okay, let's move on. And then we're going to take a break in maybe 5 minutes or so, 5-10 minutes. There's other forms, of course, we need to fill out and consult. S1, right? We have to go to the S1. So let's go back to profile and let's actually put in meals and entertainment here. So if we go down to the expense and we're going to put in meals, and let's pretend we spent $5,000 on meals and entertainment. And then we're going to go to the S1. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that profile is backing up things that are ineligible for tax, right? Ever try explaining that to a client, the difference between financial accounting income statement and tax income statement, and why are things different? Why are the values not the same? And you say, well, you know, your meals are only 50% deductible, for example, and your amortization doesn't even count. So I want to amortize the truck. Can I amortize it all? You know, all this year it's dying. Yeah, you can for financial statement maybe, but it ain't going to fly perhaps under CCA. So anyway, but that's what we're doing with the S1, right? We're going through all the additions and deductions for tax purposes. So we consult that. And then from there, we've got to go to the S50, and we've got to go and put in the name of the shareholder or shareholders who hold, as you can see right up here at the top, more than 10% of the shares. Put in their social insurance number, put in whatever percentage they own. In this case, it's easy, 100%, we're good. And then we've got to go to the S141, and that's the notes checklist. Were statements prepared, yes or no? Answer that question. Are you someone who has an accounting designation, yes or no? Are you connected with the corporation? And then we go down some more. And if we prepared financials, what did we do? We're going to hit compilation. There we go. And then we answer the rest of this, right, where it applies. And we're getting near the end of our work. After that, after we've done all that, we've got to go down to the auditor down here, okay? And go to the summary tab, which is going to give me all of the audit messages. And of course, here we've got all kinds of errors, including my total assets on my Schedule 100 don't equal my liabilities and equity, and a whole pile of other error messages that I see on that audit page. Okay, so we have to correct all that, of course. And remember, you could always double click on a message and jump to it, okay? And then, of course, we have the chat with the client, and if everything looks good, we need to send the client a T183. So we go back to profile, click F4 or press on F4, and F4 key on your keyboard for the new users is going to get worn out. It'll probably be the first key you wear out on your keyboard because you're going to be pressing F4 so many times. So we go and call up our Schedule 183, and we would then email it, maybe print it if you want a hard copy, and ask the client to sign that, okay? Or use a DocuSign or Adobe Sign to send it over to the client, get them to sign electronically, send it back to you, you're good to go, okay? So in this window, we show some of the common forms. Now I get myself in trouble because, especially when we were doing live, the tour live, and I would stand up in front of a room and say, I prefer doing T2 returns because they're easier. And a lot of people would come down hard on me saying, don't say that, they're not easier. But here's what I mean, okay? First of all, do you have tax experience? Do you have accounting knowledge? You need accounting knowledge, you need tax knowledge to work on a T2 return. If you understand the principles of GAAP accounting, if you understand CCA, if you understand, the basics, at least the basics of a tax, tax preparation, and you understand accounting, a T2 is going to be easier, in my opinion, than a T1 because it's generally more uniform. Generally, and I emphasize the word generally. Most small business clients, and I had a lot of incorporated consultants. Okay, so a lot of small single person consulting firms that were incorporated, and their tax returns were pretty straightforward. Here's the forms we had to fill out generally. The S1, we already went through, right? The S100, 125, maybe we had the S101 for first year filers. But the thing is that once you understand, I mean, nobody should be doing this if they don't understand accounting and if they don't understand tax. Nobody should think that, yesterday I was a librarian and today I'm a tax practitioner. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. There's a lot of experience and knowledge that goes into this. And if you have that experience and knowledge, then personally, my belief is that a T2 is going to be more uniform and therefore, in my mind, easier. And so if anybody would say to me, okay, here, you could choose. I've got a T1 that needs to be prepared, and I've got a T2 that needs to be prepared. Which one do you want to work on? I'm going to grab the T2 9 out of 10 times, 10 out of 10 times, because I know what to expect generally, assuming the bookkeeping's been done, everything balances. Don't ask me to do bookkeeping now. But even a little bit of bookkeeping is okay. But anyway, I'll stop there. You can see the uniformity of a T2 return. And I emphasize the word generally, okay? Because yes, there are complex T2s related and associated corporations, rental income, so on, investment income. Wait a minute, we're getting into complex stuff, okay? But again, let's move on. Okay, we're going to talk about Giphy import, and I'm going to show you how this works. So remember, we were saying that when you're doing the S100 and the S125, and we're keying all this stuff in here, oh, that gets to be a lot of work. What if we could just import the S100 and S125, such as this? Click File, go down to Import, go and find a little .gfi file. Okay, most I got two of them here. One of them is called Davis Coltrane. That's the one you should have a copy of. That was a link in the chat window. Select it, click Open. All right, and then it says Import Successful. See that right here? Import Successful. Click OK. And look at that. Did you notice how my Giphy on my S125 all changed? Look at the values. All right, let's go to the S100. Remember that warning I had that the balance sheet did not balance? Remember that when we were going through the auditor? Let's go to the S100. Look at my balance sheet. Total assets, 159,998. Total liabilities and equity, 159,998. It balances because I imported new Giphy values. How long did that take me? 5 seconds. And so you could do the same thing. As a matter of fact, that'll be your homework. If you want to try it, give it a shot. You can try it yourself. If you got ProFile on your computer, import that Giphy file that we've sent to you. Okay. And so if your client, QuickBooks for sure, no problem. QuickBooks Desktop or QuickBooks Online, you can map out the Giphy codes right in the accounting software. So you could tell QuickBooks, okay, bank is going to be Giphy code 1000. Savings account is also Giphy code 1000. I've got Canadian AR, that's going to be Giphy code 1060. I got US AR on the chart of accounts, that's also Giphy code 1060, and so on and so forth, okay? And then you export the Giphy code from your accounting software. ProFile will work with any accounting software as long as it can create that .gfi file. You import it. Piece of cake, okay? That's all there is to it. It's so dead easy, all right? All right, so we should be talking about ProTax, but what I'm going to do is let's take a break. It's 2:16, so let's take a break until 2:30, so the bottom of the hour, 14 minutes, and then we'll talk about ProTax, okay? And so I'll be back at 2:30. Thanks. All right, let's jump right back in. I've got a few more things to cover before we open up the Q&A and let you have a chance to import that Giphy code yourself. So let's talk about ProTax. I just want to take 5 minutes, no more than 10, and introduce ProTax to you. Maybe you're familiar with it, maybe you're not. So first of all, what is ProTax? Well, if you're a QuickBooks Online user, if you're a pro advisor using QuickBooks Online accountant, you have in the left-hand navigation panel the ProTax menu that's going to allow you to work with your QuickBooks Online accountant clients. So you have clients that are using QuickBooks Online, not exclusively. You could also prepare a tax return from scratch. But what happens if you have clients that are in QuickBooks Online, you can use ProTax, which is the same engine that powers ProFile. It's essentially ProFile. I'm kind of maybe twisting facts a little bit here, but it's kind of like ProFile in a different window. And so we're going to show you what this looks like. So why would you even use ProFile? Well, again, for your QuickBooks Online your QuickBooks Online clients, you're using QuickBooks Online Accountant, you reduce redundancy. A lot of the info that's already in QuickBooks automatically flows into ProTax, including your Giphy codes. Okay, you can work from anywhere. You don't have to have your computer with you with anything installed because it's cloud, and all you need is a browser. And so that kind of gets rid of that limitation. And it is platform independent. So if you're like me, I like my MacBook, and I could use ProTax on any kind of device, including my iPad. So I view tax returns on my iPad. I work on tax returns from my iPad, which I think is great. And so there's advantages there that you get from using ProTax. And to answer the question, is it mutually exclusive, one or the other? I would suggest to you that in a modern tax offices, I think there's room for both platforms. I think that using, as a matter of fact, very quickly, I'll point out that we did one of the QuickBooks conferences a couple of years ago. We did a ProTax introduction, and a manager from one of the bigger CPA firms came up to me and says, I already know how this is going to work. I have a team of people that work on the smaller end of the client base. They've got smaller businesses, and this is going to be a perfect fit. Most of them are on QuickBooks. This is perfect. And then, this is a big CPA firm. And then we've got the really large scale clients. We need ProFile for them. And he's already envisioned, the workflow in his mind. So it's not a mutually exclusive this or that. I think in a modern office, there's room for both of these solutions. And you can share files between ProTax and ProFile. So essentially, what do we have? We've got T1, T2, T3. There's something in QuickBooks Online Accountant called Work Papers, which you could use to prepare your working paper file, to prepare your Giphy code, or to review and edit your Giphy codes, because QuickBooks is automatically going to assign Giphy codes. You could also prepare your financial statements, your lead sheets, and all of that other stuff. And let's just show you very quickly some screenshots. What does all of this look like? So when you're in work papers, there's your let's call it your trial balance, which you could review the values from the accounting data, and you could check off to say, yes, we've analyzed this, we've reconciled, we've made notes, we've made adjustments, whatever it is. So you could do all of that work. Remember when we were talking about getting rid of other applications? You want to streamline the ecosystem down to as few applications as possible. Here's an example of that as well. Okay. Now I don't need Excel, don't need Microsoft Word, don't even need email anymore, because I could communicate with my clients right from inside the QBOA, QuickBooks Online Accountant ecosystem. And so I'm just increasing efficiency at every step of the way. And then once I've finished with my analysis of the accounting data, if I am using ProTax, I could start to return in ProTax, or if I want to stick with ProFile, not ready for ProTax just yet, let's pretend, I could export that Giphy file and then import it into ProFile, as we already showed you. And here's an example of what ProTax looks like. So you've got your let's call it your equivalent to the Form Explorer down the left-hand side here, okay? And there's all your forms and schedules, and you can click on one. You can get a PDF preview. You can get a data entry view, and that's how you would work in the application, okay? And you can learn a whole bunch more about ProTax. If you're a QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor, you could talk to your rep, or you could just visit the website and learn about ProTax. Okay, let's talk about it quickly about a few did you know ideas. This one gets some has gotten some mixed results. I'll just mention it. I have no experience with it, but a friend of mine who's a CPA told me that he used it and he really liked it. So you can register for telephone assistance from CRA. Okay, they have a dedicated service, the tax providers only, and you could register. And if you get accepted, then you could call into this service and get your questions answered. That's all I know about it. I've never used it, and we've had comments back from some people who said that they've used it and they didn't like it. There were deficiencies here and there. I'm not vouching for it. I'm just putting it out there that this service is available. And based on at least one person's comments, he thought it was great. So I just wanted to show it to you. Okay. As well, don't forget there are all kinds of additional webinars available. After we finish up our tour, well, today's the last day in English, tomorrow's the last day in French. Once we wrap up this tour of webinars, probably won't be available again until the fall, but there are other webinars. You can go and check the events calendar on ProFile's website and go and see what other webinars are available. And don't forget the videos. Go to their YouTube channel and check out those videos. And I just thought I'd throw up this screen. There are all kinds of shortcut keys that you could tap into if you like using shortcuts. F4, of course, being probably the most popular one, Form Explorer, and there's a whole pile more. So F9, Control F9 to show or hide the auditor, and so on and so forth. And you could, using ProFile in product help, for example, you could just call up the in product help and use a keyword search. Just use a shortcut as your keyword search, and you will see all of the shortcuts available if you like working with shortcut keys. I just wanted to quickly point out that autofill my return is available for T2 returns. It's been available for T2 returns for a number of years now, 4 or 5, I would think at least. And it's a great service. So what I'm going to show you is just a couple of very quick screenshots of what this looks like. So what you could do is go and open up a T2 return, go to T2 autofill, and you're going to see something that looks like this, okay? CRA data import. So what does it import? Here's the kind of information that you can get. T2 return balances. Now we're talking prior year, of course, right? I mean, CRA doesn't know any current year stuff in terms of revenue and expenses because we haven't filed a T2 yet. But for prior year, you will see all of the balances, as you can see on this list, including non-capital losses, capital losses, and so on and so forth. Okay, you could even get corporate account balances, prior year payments, credits, and what have you. You could even see, and I had this once with a client, where the business address was different. They had a different business address than I had. And what happened is they moved and they never notified CRA that there was a move. And so CRA still had the old address. And that's the kind of stuff you could see. And so all you have to do is go to the file menu, as we said, select autofill my return. There's the window that's going to pop up. Okay. Confirm the business number. All right. Then we're going to get this window that says they're retrieving the data. And you can then select the tax year. Okay. So the screenshot's getting a little bit old. I think I'm going to have to update it because notice we have 2018 all the way back to 2015. But nonetheless, I could go and get the data for all of these or any of these fiscal years. And then I could choose those three buckets that we were talking about: return balances, corporate account balances, or corp details such as addresses and contact info. So if I want it all, I'd make sure that every checkbox is selected. And then I could click on these links that will expand and show me all of the information. Here's an example of what that looks like. Notice we've got the CRA column and we've got the profile column. And we're having a look to see where are the discrepancies. Now, this is fictitious information that I just kind of was playing with. And so notice we even have differences in fiscal year end, for example, okay? And then we've got all kinds of differences in terms of carry forwards and what have you, okay? And so that's the kind of stuff you could get with autofill my return for T2s. All right, how about attaching documents? There are two separate ways in which you could attach and submit documents to CRA with ProFile now. One of them is the T2 for foreign reporting. Okay, so all you have to do is if you filed a T106, 1134, or 1135, and you have to submit some documentation, you could do that now you can right click on the tax return. Okay, let me just quickly show you. So what we could do is we could go to ProFile, right click on the tax return, see it says attach a doc right here. I select that, and then I select one or the other. Am I selecting something for foreign reporting? I'll select that, click next, and then I could indicate which one I'm working with. Okay, and I could go and browse and find a document, whatever that document is. I'm going to stop there because I don't really have anything live, but I could show it to you in slides. And so I select foreign reporting, click next, okay? And then I go and I attach the document, whatever the document is that I want to send to CRA, select the return type. There's going to be a pre-filled, pre-populated slip information that I have to click the drop down and select, as well as a document type. In this case, it's an org chart. I can then save that, and that's what it looks like. You see it's listed now under T1135. I could send it, I could remove it, I could edit the document. Okay, so that's how I could send documentation directly to CRA under foreign reporting. If I want to send something else to CRA, I could use the attach a doc feature. Maybe there's an election of some sort, perhaps you want to send, okay? And so now I do the same thing, right click, select attach a doc, and then select attach a doc again. Here's the type of forms I could select, or file types, PDFs, doc, Excel files, and what have you. I select the form, okay, that I want to send. All right, in this case, it's an Excel file. And again, I have to indicate what kind of document type or description. All right, so this is a list of partnership account numbers that I'm sending to CRA. Click Save, and then I can see the same window that we saw before. There's my document, and then I could either transmit it, delete it, or edit it. Okay. And to transmit, I could also click down here, transmit attachments to CRA. And once it's done, I will get a confirmation window, as you can see right over here. There is a video that walks you through all of, I know I went really quickly. It's kind of difficult to show you this live in profile. We have to actually have something to say. But nonetheless, if you want to view it in more detail, don't forget the videos. Okay, you can go and get those videos that will walk you through how attach a doc works from A to Z. There's another way of attaching documents to a tax return, but this time for internal use only. Okay, you want to send some, not send, I'm sorry, you want to save is the word I should use. You want to save a document related to that tax return you're working on. Okay, and now you could use hyperdocs for that. And so with hyperdocs, this I could show you because there's no submission to CRA or anything like that. So with hyperdocs, what I could do is there's two ways of doing this. Let me just very quickly show you both ways. So I could go and I could click File, all right? And then I go and find hyperdocs right over here. And let's pretend I have some kind of document, some kind of technical bulletin, some interpretation bulletin from CRA that relates somehow to this tax return I'm working on. And I had to research this, and I want to refer to it maybe in the future. And I don't want to lose this document. I'll forget where I found it online. It took me 3 hours to research it or something, whatever it is. And so what I could do is I could attach it. See, we've got these icons right across the top right over here. And I click the first one, and that is the icon I click to attach a document. So let's pretend it's this document, okay? And I'll just click open. And now I can choose whether to embed the document or link it. Now, linking creates a hyperlink, and we know how that works, right? If I get a new computer, if I move folders around, I risk breaking that link. So instead, I'm going to embed it, make that document a permanent part of that tax return. All right. So it's an attachment. It's an attachment to the tax return. And again, emphasize internal use only. Does not go to the client. Does not go to CRA. Okay. Only exception is for Revenue Quebec. If you're working in Quebec, you can actually choose to transmit the document to Revenue Quebec, but only for Revenue Quebec. I'm going to click OK. I've now attached the document. Okay. And I see it by going to File. And let me just get there, File, and go back to hyperdocs. And there's my document. Okay. The other way I could do this is I could be working on a tax return and I have a particular form. So for example, let's pretend that you did not prepare the financial statements, okay? They were given to you. Financial statements were given to you. You were asked to only complete the T2. And what you want to do is you want to attach a copy of the financials to ProFile. If anybody comes along and says, where did these numbers come from? Oh, they were prepared by someone else. Here's the PDF or here's the Excel file for that financial statement. And so I can now attach a hyperdoc directly to a schedule or a line on the schedule. Okay, so I right click inside a line and then I go and get, I go click on hyperdoc and I could then attach right over here. You see it says attach to hyperdoc. So I'll select that. And once again, I go and get whatever that document is. So let's pretend here I've got a hyperdoc sample financial statement and I click open. Okay. And again, ProFile is going to ask me, Do I want to link this document or embed? I always choose embed. And I'm going to click OK. Now watch what happens to that field. I'm going to click OK. And notice again, I get the green shading. Okay. The green shading means there's something there. I could now go and hover over that field, and there's the icon of an Excel file. Okay. I could right click it and I could say, open that hyperdoc. And I could now take a minute or two, and now you can see that Microsoft Excel is firing up, and there's my supposed financial statement. Okay. A little tip for you. If you do attach hyperdocs, now we know that we could go to the file menu and we could go and scroll down to hyperdocs. Okay. And I now see that there are 2 documents. And I could open those documents. I could view those documents. Okay. What you could do as well, just a tip, just a suggestion, is that if you like working with the auditor, there is no mention in the auditor that there are hyperdocs anywhere in this tax return. So what you could do to trigger the auditor is right click and attach a memo as well. So I'm going to select attach memo, and I'm going to say hyperdocs on S125, or maybe C hyperdoc on S125, or something like that. Okay, and I'm going to click OK. And now by attaching a memo as well, what happens is I know that I could go to the memo tab of the auditor, and I could double click on that message, and it's going to jump me right to it. And now I could see, oh yeah, there's an Excel file here. I could right click and open it as we did before. Okay, so just a little suggestion about how to use hyperdoc. Now, we're pretty well done the instructional part of our presentation, so we're maybe 5 minutes early. I wanted to just review, if you want to try the Giphy import, let me just show you once again how we did that, okay? You should have a copy of that .gfi file, the daviscoltrane.gfi. So all you have to do, I'm going to do it from scratch. I'm going to close down this tax return, okay? And all you have to do is this, File, New, T2, okay? Open up a new T2, put in any fiscal period. I'm going to put in 2022 0101, and ProFile will do the rest. So let's pretend it's a December year end. I'm going to click OK. Now, even before I fill in all the other stuff, all I have to do now is go and select File, go down to Import. Now, hopefully it's saved that Davis Coltrane file on your computer. Select it, click Open. And notice it says Import Successful. And then using Form Explorer, call up the S125. There's your income statement. Call up the S100 using Form Explorer. There's your balance sheet. All right, as easy as that. So give it a try if you'd like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let you try. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to mute my microphone again for another 5 minutes and let you try that. Okay, and then I'm going to come back and we'll discuss it. If you have questions about that, I'm going to open up the Q&A window so I could view your comments, view your questions, and maybe we can have a chat about it if you'd like. And that'll take us to the end. So we'll stay here until we run out of comments and questions, or until 3:30 when we have to call it quits. All right. So I'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you. All right, let me open up the Q&A window and let's have a look and see if there's any comments, any questions about that Giphy import, see if anyone's tried it. Okay, so just going through the list of questions. It's not that many actually, so let me just quickly look. Someone's saying this is perfect. Thank you. I am an accounting major student. Well, welcome. Excuse me. Thank you for your comment. I presume you're talking about the Giphy import. Glad that you think it's great. Glad that you're finding it as something that could be useful. Wonderful. Another question is regards CPD. You will get your an email with those CPD credits sent to you, so don't worry about it. Give it a bit of time. I understand it's at least 10 days before you get those CPD. As long as you're registered for the webinar, you're good to go. Other questions are being answered by the care team. I just want to see if there's anything that might be pertinent. Someone is asking, how do I edit the tape? I don't know. I don't know that. Can you even edit that? Let me just see. Can I edit a tape? If I go to a field, I don't know. I don't know that you could edit. Let's see. So if I use the calculator tape here, let me just hang on a sec. Let me just scroll up to move this up a bit so you can see it better. Here we go. So let's add a tape. So somebody's saying, can I edit this tape? So they're saying I put $100 and then I realized that it should have been $10. So I don't know. Let's find out. Attach a tape. Can I go in and edit? Change that to 10. We had $400 as the total. There you go. Okay, we're good. Oh no, yeah, there you go. All right. So all I did. I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of the person who asked that question. It's not open on my screen. So just go to the tape, right? Hover over the tape or over the field, and then right-click, attach tape, and then change value. Just click on that line that you want to change, put in a different value, and do OK. You're good to go. I didn't even know you could do that, actually. I've never tried. Okay, let's go back to the questions. Give me a second here. Let me just open up that question again. Tracy's saying import was easy, but it appears I need to adjust my Giphy codes. Totals aren't balancing with my income statement and balance sheet. Otherwise super easy to do. Yeah, I have seen Tracy on occasion. I never really researched why. I have seen that sometimes retained earnings doesn't populate, and so your balance sheet is off. But then you just plug in the, you know how you have to do well, we're actually on that page right over here. You know, your opening retained earnings. Sometimes they don't come in. If I remember, and I'm just going off the top of my head, I seem to remember there being sometimes an issue with that. All you have to do is put in the opening retained earnings and it would be fine. Okay. Somebody's saying, is it on the PDF dashboard or profile dashboard? I'm not sure what we're talking about there. Dipesh, I think is the fellow's names. Hey, Jonathan. Yeah, Jonathan's making a comment about those Giphy codes. Yeah, yes, thank you for that. You're right. Sometimes it might be a negative or positive amount. Yes, true. I forgot about that. Sometimes I'm just pointing at one line. So you might have a negative value, like accumulated amortization, maybe, if I remember correctly. So you might want to watch that, Tracy. Sometimes that could be an issue too when you're importing from Giphy. So thanks for that, Jonathan. Good to see you back. Let me see. what else? We've talking about the saved sign T183 or 1013. I presume you're talking about. Electronic signatures, Deepesh. Oh, I see that Duncan's answering your questions, so I'll let Duncan take care of that. Thank you, Duncan, for answering that one. And let's see what else we've got here. Looks like everything else has been answered. So I'm not sure if there's not very many questions on or comments on the Giphy import. So let's just wait a few more minutes. It's almost 10 after the hour. So we'll see if we have more questions coming in. I'm more than happy to stick around and answer any final questions. Okay. I think we're pretty well done. I don't want to sign off too quickly, just in case somebody's in the process of typing in a question. Rishona is saying, how do I access the S100? Well, all you have to do is, again, press F4 to open up. Oops, press F4 to open up. Oops, hang on a second. I've got a Zoom window that's in the way. Just move this. All you have to do is open up Form Explorer by pressing the F4 key, type in S100, and you'll jump. We're already on it. Here's the S100. So that's all you have to do. Okay. So that Form Explorer is incredibly handy. You'll be using it, as I say, you'll be wearing out the F4 key on your keyboard. Magda is saying, how do we get a recording of the lesson? Remember to go to the YouTube channel, okay? And you can go, so you can go other training options, okay? Just start by doing that, other training options. Oh, hang on, I got another Zoom window in the way here. So that's when you click on online other training options or training other training options. Looks like my computer is starting to slow down. Too many windows open, perhaps. So here we are. Okay, on the training page, scroll down, go to videos. Okay, and that's going to take you to the YouTube channel, and you can then from there go and view the videos that are available on the YouTube channel. Okay. All right. And again, questions have all been answered. There are no open questions. So let's just wait another minute or two and see if any final questions come in. Oops, as I'm saying that. Well, thank you. There are people who are just using the Q&A panel to thank the team, thank us all. I much appreciated. Really appreciate you being here. Really appreciate your engagement. Kind of sad that this is the last one. I'm going to miss these guys. Working with these guys is always a thrill. Having everybody in on this call has been a thrill. Thank you, everyone, one and all, for your feedback, for your comments. And I think I hear the dulcet voice of my friend Duncan.
It's Mario. No, it's
nice try.
Yeah. Really appreciate you doing this, Michael. It was great as usual. I want to thank everybody for attending, and we're going to end the webinar now. As Michael mentioned at the beginning, you will get the CBD credits and a copy of the webinar sent out to you. You will also get, you can also go to our Intuit ProFile support page on the internet, on the Intuit ProFile website. There's also, as we mentioned before, the Intuit Accountant U2 page, and there's a copy of the webinars there, plus a lot of other good videos. And I'll just close out by saying thank you all for attending. Thank you for using ProFile. Thank you, Michael. And I'm going to miss these webinars too, so I think I'll join the French one tomorrow, even though I can't speak French.
Well, I'd love to have
So
you there tomorrow.
So appreciate all the work everybody did here, and thank you again, Michael. And we'll end it here.